This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast, and the streak is over.
It's over.
It's over. It's only Ricky and I today. I'm Sean Anderson. I am joined by Ricky Widmer.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
And usually we have Dave Oster, and I always cut off Ricky. So, I mean, we're at least playing that.
We're playing to the normal themes of the podcast.
Exactly. But Dave is not here because Dave is sick. Dave has strep throat. Dave is contagious. Dave doesn't want to be here or get us sick.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, Dave is missing because he is sick, has strep throat, but
story.
In the group chat to us that we have in our text messages, it was funny how he sent it to us to tell us. He's like, well, Cal Ripken's streak over. I've got strep throat. Fucking bullshit, because I didn't even want to miss this week.
So there are weeks that Dave doesn't want to miss, and I feel like Dave will miss a couple more weeks.
Well, to find out how, you got to visit Dave_don't_tweet.
Yeah, we try to make Dave doesn't tweet, but apparently some guy, made it and then did not tweet, and he hasn't tweeted since 2011.
At least he's keeping to the trend, though.
At least
keeping
he
to
is.
The trend.
So we had to go Dave_don't_tweet.
Dave don't tweet with the underscore.
Dave don't tweet. The actual name is MVP Dave. You can recognize it by the MVP logo in the background. But let's get into the actual NBA talk, the actual gist of this podcast.
What do we do? The trade deadline's not here, so what do we talk about?
We milk the trade deadline. Honestly, like next year, I think from December to February, it's all gonna be trade deadline videos because that's what's done well. Let's do what else does well. The draft.
Oh, the draft! Everyone loves the draft.
It's hard not to love. I mean, you get to get a new fresh faces here. You get to see these kids grow up from college into the NBA, and it's a fantastic time. And we're getting around tourney time, so we'll really see how these kids do well in high pressure situations.
Sooner or later, we'll have your 2.0 coming out.
We will have my 2.0 coming out, and we'll have some reactions to other mock drafts coming out, and we'll start talking about that and see why we think or where we think people will be moving. But the real question that's really come up of lately, the main prospect here was Ben Simmons. Like, even coming into this season, Ben Simmons was the kid to watch, and Brandon Ingram was always his number 2. But Chad Ford and Kevin Pelton of ESPN put out a article saying number 1 pick, Ben Simmons or Brandon Ingram. And not to toot my own horn here, Ricky, but if you look at Sean Anderson mock draft 1.0, my number 1 pick was Brandon Ingram because I said he is more. His skill set plays to the NBA more than Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons doesn't have a jump shot, and there's been articles coming out that saying that he might be shooting with the wrong hand, let alone just an ugly jump shot in general. So I mean, really, when you look at it, who is your number 1 pick in your eyes? If you're the 76ers, because they're most likely going to get the number 1 pick, who is the number 1 pick in your mind?
As of right now, if I am the 76ers, I have to lean towards, the only way I lean towards Ben Simmons is if you're in the war room, you're the head of the Sixers, and you honestly believe this kid is going to be the next LeBron James. If you have just anywhere over a 20% doubt that he is going to be, so if 20% you're like, he could be the next LeBron James, 20 to 100, you take the kid because you don't want to be the organization that passed up on the next LeBron James. However, there's always a however with me. Brandon Ingram looks like the prospect that if I was an organization, because I don't think Ben Simmons is going to be the next LeBron James. If he was, LSU wouldn't be 16-12.
Well,
they wouldn't be 4th in the SEC, not even going to make March Madness this year.
The kid's averaging a double-double. I mean, you can't say this is all Ben Simmons' fault. He's playing 35 minutes a game, shooting 56% from the field.
Here's the thing about that. And with Duke and LSU, the strength that they've had to play schedule-wise, it goes in favor of, to me, in Duke. The non-conference schedule for LSU was kind of, except for your big games in non-conference. Marquette, not that tough of a team in my eyes. NC State, cool. You played an ACC team, but it's NC State. Other than that, I mean, you have Houston out there. That's your next toughest opponent. And guess what? Those 3 opponents that I listed, you lost.
Yeah.
Then in the SEC, there's nothing besides like Kentucky and Texas A&M. I'll throw South Carolina in there as well. The competition in the SEC isn't nowhere near what Duke is feeling right now.
What I do really want to look at is, performances in big games. You look at the Kentucky game. Ben Simmons, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. That's a decent stat line, but nothing, game changing there. And he only played 27 minutes there and shot 100%, 1,000% from the field. So, he performed, and that's probably his best performance against a top-notch team. But then you look at Texas A&M, 10 points. You look at Oklahoma, 14 points. You look at Texas A&M again, 16 points.
This is Ben Simmons you're talking about.
Yeah, Ben Simmons. He's not really coming up and playing, like a number 1 draft prospect. But if you look at Ben Simmons of late, you look at against the number 5 UNC, 20 points. Against Virginia, 25 points. You look at Miami, 19 points. NC State, 25 points. Notre Dame, 25 points. Boston College, 25 points. So he's playing well against, top teams in the NCAA.
And here's the thing. You kind of read my mind with I was on the side of Brandon Ingram. Minus, let's say, the first, from like the season began for Duke on November 13th. By the time, let's say that first month, that month of November was kind of a feeling out period where Ingram didn't have, I know he started with 15 and 12, but after that, like 4, 8, 5, didn't have as many big performances. After he hit on the 2nd of December, huge game against Indiana, scored 24 points. In the game against Notre Dame, I know that they lost by 4, but he had 25 points in that one. Against Miami of Florida, 19 points, 10 rebounds. Against Louisville, 18 points, 10 rebounds. UNC, the win, 20 points in that one. Against 18 Louisville, that was the one where he fell off and had 8 and 5. Ever since the beginning of December, this kid Ingram has had double digits a game except for that one game against Louisville on the 20th of February.
And I do want to mention, just looking at the college stats straight up, Simmons averaging more points per game compared to Ingram. Simmons having 19 and a half a game. Brandon Ingram averaging out 17 a game. Ben Simmons averaging a double-double as well, 11 rebounds per game, even close to 12 there. Brandon Ingram, 6.8 rebounds per game. But again, what I'm saying is Ingram is more fit for the NBA because if you look at the percentages, 40% from three-point land and 45% from field goal range. So Brandon Ingram, the more efficient shooter, he's going to be able to spot up. He's going to be able to drive in. He's going to be able to do a lot of things. And the thing with Ben Simmons, he's an athletic freak, but is athleticism, is that going to be able to carry you all the way through? Because you look at former picks like Hasheem Thabeet, was supposed to be a top big man.
Don't stop the beat, man.
He was supposed to be a top big man, and they really just picked him based on size. And, looking at, because he was just a monster in the paint, just stuffing left and right. But he just didn't have that one thing to, take him above the competition in the NBA. And I look at Ben Simmons, people aren't sure if he's a small forward. People aren't sure if he's a power forward. People look at the comparison, he was being compared to LeBron James at the start of the season. Now it's more of a more athletic Draymond Green. Now it's like a Blake Griffin where, Blake Griffin was a horrible shooter in college. Ben Simmons, a horrible shooter in college, both playing in similar conferences there. So I think Simmons, he might be, if he starts developing his shot, he'll most likely be the better player in the NBA. But that's the thing. It's developing that shot. How long will it take to develop that shot? What is the culture you're going to go into the NBA? And if you're looking at where he will go, if he goes number 1, he's going to the 76ers. And the 76ers are a trap.
I was just going to throw out that really and another thing that plays into this is which team gets that number 1 pick. Because it's not a lock that the 76ers are going to get it because of the conspiracy known as the NBA lottery.
That's true.
And this is coming from a Bulls fan that we had under it was a 0.8% to get Derrick Rose, and then we got Derrick Rose.
Yeah, and
so,
Kyrie,
the conspiracy.
Yeah, Anthony Bennett pick for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Kyrie after LeBron leaves. So like the 76ers, they may say, hey, you tanked for nothing. Go fuck yourself.
Looking at that, though, I mean, if it's really the Lakers and the 76ers who have the best chance at being one or two. I
would even throw maybe the Suns in there. I would throw the top three. The top three, to me, have a chance at that number one.
And then Brooklyn also gave their pick to the Celtics. So that top four is going to be the Celtics, 76ers, Suns, and Lakers. But looking at that, I think the best place for a Ben Simmons to go,
L.A. I would say LA.
I mean, let me finish, man.
Yeah, I know. I was just cutting you off a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm trying to say some.
Actually,
some
no.
words here.
I changed my mind. But go ahead. What you were going to say.
I'm gonna actually, talk like I was going to.
Yeah, go ahead. I changed my mind.
I was gonna say Los Angeles, or obviously the Celtics because they're already a playoff team. But I don't think the Nets are gonna really win the lottery, and I don't think that would basically mean the Celtics winning the lottery there. I think the Lakers are the best fit there because you're gonna have young players around them, but a young team that can really develop with each other and play with each other. Because if you look at Ben Simmons, he can play the small forward. I mean, people are saying.
And I said I was going to change my decision because I originally saw Ben Simmons as the power forward. And then I looked at the depth chart for the Lakers. Larry Nance Jr., Julius Randle. They've got a ton of power forwards, but Randle and maybe Nance next year can be more of a spark for them. I know Nance plays a little bit now, but the big thing is Kobe's not going to be there.
Kobe won't be there, but I think that's a good thing.
I mean, with Ben Simmons, he could go to L.A. and have, I don't know if the spotlight being on him would be a good thing, but he could fit right into that small forward and have the talent around him. D'Angelo Russell at the point. You have Jordan Clarkson at the 2. Jordan and D'Angelo up top. Simmons on the wing. Randle and Nance down low. Lakers could have something to build on. However, the 76ers, if they're number one, I go Brandon Ingram because they already have too many bigs. They've got Okafor, Embiid, and Noel. You add one more person who could possibly play in the post, and it's like, nope, you don't need that. You don't need 4 possible players who could play at the 4.
Well, that's the thing with the Lakers is that they can. I see their vision that they kind of want to be like Golden State because I don't think D'Angelo Russell or Clarkson are the shooters that Thompson and Curry are, but they can be similar scorers and they could put up this similar numbers there. And if Ben Simmons' comparison is Draymond Green, he would fit beautifully there because he can start setting picks and pick and pops with. I mean, if he starts developing his jump shot, obviously he can start setting
and shooting with the right hand.
Yeah, it's shooting with the right hand. You start rolling off pick and rolls with D'Angelo Russell and Clarkson. He can start cutting to the basket. He can start finding these guys on cuts. He can be the point guard in position. So I think Ben Simmons would work, flourish there in Los Angeles, especially if they get a better coach than Byron Scott. I think that's another thing to throw in there if they get rid of Byron Scott. But the Sixers, looking at that, I mean, you have Ja down low, and then you have Noel at the 3, and then you have Noel at the 4, and then Simmons would be playing the 3. I think that's just way too much height. I think that's way too many big men right there. I know Simmons really doesn't play like a normal big man. I know he's very athletic. He's very fast. He's just basically a truck there. But I feel that's just way too much clogging there, like you said. And I feel if you put Brandon Ingram there, they have a very similar length. I think Brandon Ingram's an inch shorter, but Ingram can really stretch that floor out. Ingram can be a Kevin Durant where he doesn't need the ball in his hand to score. He can play off. He could come around screens. He can set up, he could be a spot up shooter there. So I think that Ingram's best fit would be really any team because he's fit for the NBA. He could play in Los Angeles and thrive. He could play in the Sixers or Philly and thrive. He could play in the Celtics if they win the lottery and thrive. He could play in Phoenix if they win the lottery and thrive. Ben Simmons, I feel like it's more of what would be the better fit.
To me, this is how I see it. The 3 teams, like I said, I brought up. You threw out the Celtics because they would technically right now have the 4th worst or 4th best pick, I should say, going into the lottery because of that Nets pick. But because what we're going to talk about later in the podcast, they may have to give that up if they revisit a trade this offseason. But with Ben Simmons and Ingram, this is the way I see it. If the Sixers get number 1, you go with Ingram because you already have Ja, Embiid, and Noel. Unless you're going to move one of them to possibly get something else, you go with Ingram. The Lakers, go with Ben Simmons. Go with the guy who can play in both. With the Suns, that's the team where it's like they could go with anything. I mean, P.J. Tucker technically on ESPN's depth chart is their number 1 small forward. However, they don't really have that good of players at the 4. So, I mean, they could go with, okay, a Ben Simmons if they're number 1. They can go with a Brandon Ingram, and it's like, okay, that's a good pick.
Well, the thing I look at with the Suns there, you're going to get Brandon Knight back, and you're going to get Eric Bledsoe back at the point. So point guard's really filled out there. Shooting guard Devin Booker is ridiculous. Devin Booker's a great pick there. Small forward, I think that's T.J. Warren's spot when he starts to develop and he starts to get healthy. I think T.J. Warren's going to be your small forward there. So I think Ben Simmons at that power forward position would be beautiful.
Because right now they
Tyson
got
Chandler
Humphries,
and Len in the
Lure, and Teletovic.
Yeah,
are their power forwards.
And I think those guys are really great bench players, but I don't think they're starters in the NBA. And if you put in Ben Simmons there, that's a ridiculous fit. So I think if Ben Simmons is going to the West Coast, kind of near Australia more, because that's where he's from, I think that he would thrive in both of those places.
But if you're the Sixers, go with Ingram.
Yeah.
That's what we're in agreement with, right?
I'm in agreement that Ingram should be the number 1 if it is the 76ers picking there. Looking at the rest of the draft there, who is your one prospect in this draft that you are thinking, in the later half that can really have an effect on this team? So like from
do you mean later half 15, outside of the lottery?
Yeah, 15 down. So, I mean, not really. I think the lottery still is in the mix with 15, but 15 down. So a later half in the draft. Who is the one player that you could really see flourish and come up and step out? So kind of like a Jimmy Butler where he went in the last, the last pick of the first round. Who do you think that player could be in this draft?
I've got two, maybe 3, and I want to say the first 2, they've got to be Denzel Valentine and Demetrius Jackson. Where I know that I hate Notre Dame, and I hate everything about Notre Dame.
And I hate you.
And you hate me for that. Ever since you brought up, like, when I started talking to you about college basketball, and you were like, hey, you got to check out this Demetrius Jackson kid. I hope the Bulls get him. At first, I'm like, okay, he's a point guard, so I guess I'll look into him. The Bulls need to get this guy. He's the guy that I hope the Bulls go after because we all know my opinions on how I thought the Bulls should have drafted Tyus Jones last year instead of Bobby Portis. I like Bobby now. Bobby's an okay pick. In my mind, just we'll leave it at that. But I feel like Demetrius Jackson's going to be a big one. He may not be the guy that comes out and Derrick Roses it in his first year where he's lighting it up, but he could be a big role player and then mature into a starting point guard role. Valentine is a guy where I just want to see that kid succeed in the NBA. I love Denzel Valentine. Coming out of Michigan, Michigan State loves to kind of have the, like, Draymond Green being one of them. Those guys know how to play because Tom Izzo knows how to coach them up. I'm going to give you a sleeper, though, who right now I'm looking at NBADraft.net, and they have him as a second-round prospect. But I think this kid's going to be great in the NBA because of his relationship with Coach Calipari and kind of being for Kentucky that guy on the bench who's an extension of Coach Cal, Tyler Ulis.
I like the Ulis pick, and I've seen Ulis play since he's from Chicago, and he used to go up against my high school. So I like the Ulis idea, but Ulis is very small. Ulis can be dynamic, but he's very small.
5'90" or 5'9", $160.
Very small guy. So I mean, he's either got to bulk up or he's just got to use his speed. And he's a very fast player, and I think he could be a decent, second rotation point guard. But I love the Demetrius Jackson pick, like you said. So I obviously will go away from it there. But talking about DJ, I'm surprised you don't know him because he was a stud last year in the tournament. Him and Jaren Grant, they were lighting it up for Notre Dame.
For me, with Notre Dame last year was all about I'm gonna screw up his last name, Connaughton. It was all about Connaughton last year with Notre Dame. It was all about Patty Connaughton, and I believe in our mock drafts I had him going to Atlanta. Was the team that I had him going to later on. Another guy I'm going to ask you about in this draft is Melo Trimble. I mean, he's a sophomore. He may decide to stay, but he's a guy in college where I love Melo Trimble, but is he going to do anything in the NBA? Right now, he's a 31st selected pick in the NBA.net mock draft to the Boston Celtics.
I don't think he transfers well. I don't think, looking at Trimble, I don't think he really plays like a point guard in the NBA. Like Ulis, I think that one's a stretch too, because Ulis, he's just too small. He's just very, he out there, it just seems like, he's a fantastic player in college. Yeah. I think he's a fantastic player, but I think it's really, will he be able to keep up with these players? Trimble, it's more, I don't see his game transferring at all, because I don't really know what his main style is. It seems like he's a scorer first, but he's supposed to be a point guard, and I really want him to be like a Chris Paul type, but
more of the assister than the scorer.
Yeah, and I don't think he's that great of a scorer, and I don't think he's that great of a Chris Paul type. So I feel like he can be an okay bench player at the most. I don't feel like he's going to be a starter in the NBA. I don't feel like he can really transcend a team. But when I look at a DJ from Notre Dame, the kid's athletic, he's fast, he's great with, he's got high IQ, he's very good looking at the just seeing the court. He's pretty decent at defending. But I think the thing that he really needs to develop is a 3-point shot. But if you're going to a Bulls team, you don't really need that, because you got Mirotic, you got buckets, you got
Dougie McBuckets. I was gonna say
Dougie
you
McBuckets.
Just told him.
So I feel like
Dougie can slam it down too, man.
It's weird, but yeah, I mean, I'm really loving I'm loving DJ, and I hope the Bulls get him there. But I think the one guy we didn't mention he's a guy from China, and I'm gonna really try to butcher his name.
What is it? Key? It's QI is his last name.
Zhu Kui.
Or Kui. Zhu Kui.
All right, the kid from China who's going 30 in my mock draft to Golden State, he is very thin. He's very weak. I think he's like 7'3" and like 192. So he's brittle, but he's got a high IQ. He's a great passer. I think he's got a decent shot, and he's young. So I mean, he'll have time to develop. So I mean, if Draymond bargains too high, or and they could put him in where Bogut is, I think he could really develop if he goes to the right team again. Also, I like Domantas Sabonis from Gonzaga, because I have him going to the Spurs, and the Spurs just pull it's a factory, and they just push out great players.
I'm gonna throw out one more question, because I know me and you sit on the same side of the argument for this prospect. Which team, either in the lottery or outside of the lottery in the first round, makes the mistake of drafting Grayson Allen if he comes out?
Oh, what team's going to make that mistake?
Who's going to make that mistake? Because I know both me and you would see it as a mistake if it's in the first round.
I think Grayson Allen's a joke, to be honest with you. I mean, I wrote in my mock draft, he's a budget JJ Redick. And you're probably like, all right, the guy on Duke's a fantastic team this year. They've obviously struggled, had their struggles.
He also likes to trip players, let's be honest.
They've had a struggle, and he's kind of a scumbag personality-wise. But
I hate Grayson Allen.
But he's leading the Blue Devils in points and assists right now. But looking at him, I don't see anything that jumps off the page. I think he can be stopped very easily by any NBA defender, and I don't think he's.
I'll be honest, he's got a good drive to the basket, but like you said, in the NBA, the competition is a little. Let's put it this way: the competition's a little bit better, and the refs are a little bit better. They'll call a travel when your foot hits the ground before it leaves your hand.
See, with Grayson Allen, I see budget JJ Redick, but I see Christian Laettner. Christian Laettner NBA performance, because Christian Laettner.
I just think
fantastic player in college.
He's this generation's Christian Laettner.
I can see how you say that, but I don't think there's going to be another Christian Laettner ever. I mean,
just saying, for
Christian Laettner was hated by everyone.
I know, but maybe it's because I hate Grayson Allen.
I think Grayson Allen's just not good enough to be in Christian Laettner contentionship. But I see him putting out I think that's Christian Laettner's even too high of praise. I don't see him doing well. I think maybe a Jimmer. He's going to be like Jimmer Fredette. A lot of hype around.
I liked Jimmer too,
but Jimmer wasn't a good NBA player, and I see like
he's going to be a spot. Like, he was the guy for me. If you drafted Jimmer, sit him in the corner, and when he's open, just pass it to him.
I think Grayson Allen is Jimmer Fredette 2.0, but he's going to have less hype around him.
Let's be honest. A lot of people thought the same thing of Steph Curry coming out. Oh, the kid. Well,
Steph Curry came before Jimmer Fredette.
Yeah, the kid from Davison can only shoot threes, and then he became the greatest.
Steph Curry was more than just shooting threes.
I don't know. In that tournament where he led Davison a long way, he was pretty much a three-point shooter for that tournament.
I think he was a clutch three-point shooter, and I think you remember the three-point shots because they came in clutch times. But I think Steph Curry was much more than that.
I did not see Steph Curry becoming the face of the NBA.
I didn't see that as well.
Years. That's what I'm trying to say.
I didn't see that as well, but I also didn't see him just flopping. I
didn't say he was going to flop. I was going more for I didn't see him becoming the face of the NBA in, 3 years, 4 years?
Longer than that. He was
5 or 6. That's right.
5 or 6. He came out
because
in 2009.
I was talking to Dave, and this is an off topic, but it's a point about Steph Curry. If he wins the title this year, we can start making the comparison that he's just like Jordan. Took Jordan 6 years to win his first title. Then Jordan won 3 straight. If he wins 3 straight, he's Jordan. Just throwing it out there.
You throw that out there. I can see what you mean.
Because people love to compare people to Michael Jordan.
I can see the comparison there, but it's not close. I mean, completely 2 different players, completely 2 different play styles there.
And completely 2 different NBAs.
Yeah, you can say that they have similar career projections.
Career arcs,
but no. Michael Jordan and Steph Curry are not comparable. Any final thoughts on any big names or big any players that can really step up?
There's one player I can think of.
There's one player in my mock draft that I did have going too high, but I still believe in him. Mm-hmm. I had him going 16th to the Nuggets. Well, we're looking at that. That's way too high. It's Nigel Hayes from Wisconsin.
Is he going to fall in your next one? Is that the little sneak peek in that one?
I don't think Nigel Hayes will be in my mock draft next time. I was just looking for a power forward, but looking at Nigel Hayes, I still think he could be a fantastic player.
Do you want to know where NBA Draft.net has him right now?
Sure, why not?
52nd overall, second rounder.
That makes more sense than 16.
To the Jazz.
That one I do regret there, but looking at him, I mean, when he was playing
I love Nigel.
When he was playing on a high-level Wisconsin team, he's getting 33 minutes a game, shooting 49% from the field, and shooting 39% from 3, averaging 12.4 points per game. I think he could be a phenomenal player not a phenomenal player, not like a starter in the NBA, but I think he'd be a decent 6-man. And then and then if you take a look at his stats, I think they're just completely inflated right now because he's getting 36 minutes. He's the number 1 player on this team, and he's not a number 1 player, so he's shooting 38% from the field. 31% from 3-point land, but he has he's averaging 16 points. So I think his stats are struggling because he doesn't have the help around him. But if he goes to a team where he can get that help, I think he can be a player that can flourish in the NBA.